hard time trying to come up with a name for this dish. Because what I did was I took a fairly standard meat pie with ground meat on the bottom and potatoes on top, but then I went through it and I made every element better. When I thought about making a meat pie, I thought, how can I add even more flavor? So I deconstructed it in my mind, and I put it back together, and at each step, I added just a little something special. So for example, when it comes to browning the meat, instead of just letting it brown in the pan, I'm gonna let it get really dark brown, really caramelized, and I'm gonna do it in batches to make sure that it is golden all over. It adds a little bit of time, but it also adds a ton of flavor. Here's a trick about how to brown something. So once you get it evenly distributed in the pan, walk away from the pan. Don't touch it. It's hard not to. Now I'm just gonna cook the onions right in the drippings. And here's another step where I'm just gonna add another layer of flavor. Instead of just cooking the onions until they soften, I'm gonna caramelize them until they're really, really dark golden brown. When the onions are ready, that's when you wanna add your garlic and sage. And now I can just add the meat back to the pan. A typical green vegetable ingredient that you'd find in a cottage pie or a shepherd's pie would be frozen peas that you throw in, and those are great. But I'm gonna use spinach instead. Peas don't absorb cream the way spinach absorbs cream. Worcestershire is one of those great flavor enhancers. All the other ingredients will just taste more like themselves. Now mashed potatoes would be traditional, but I love the idea of scalloped potatoes. And I also added rutabaga to the mix because it's winter and I have a lot of them. And rutabagas are great. They're really sweet. People don't think to use them, and they're wonderful with the potatoes and then with that savory cheese. Layer them down right on top of the meat in the same skillet. And before I add the next layer, I'm gonna add some Gruyere. You could also use any good melting cheese actually. And then just do it all over again. Add the rest of the cheese right on top, because the cheese is what's gonna get all golden and gooey. Instead of just pouring heavy cream on this, I took my cue from a potato gratin and I reduced the cream with garlic and thyme so that it could absorb the flavors and then just get thicker and richer. And that is another way to add great flavor. The foil's really important because this has to sort of steam bake because we want the rutabagas and the potatoes to cook through. And then I'm gonna put it in the oven. At this point, my root vegetables should be completely tender, so now I'm just gonna take the foil off and let the top get nice and brown. And there you have it. Isn't it gorgeous? And I cooked the whole thing in just one skillet. Doesn't even matter what you call it. This meat pie is over the top.